The story of Iran and Israel is one of the most dramatic reversals in modern history. Once pragmatic partners, today they stand on the brink of all-out war, their conflict echoing across the globe. This isn't a simple tale of good versus evil, but a tangled web of religion, ideology, and national pride. To understand how we reached the missile alerts of June 2025, we must look back. For decades, Iran and Israel cooperated, militarily, economically, and strategically, united by mutual interests and suspicion of their Arab neighbors. But political and ideological shifts turned former friends into bitter foes, fueling a multi-layered conflict: direct military standoffs, proxy wars, cyber attacks, and diplomatic battles. The long Gaza war has only accelerated this collision, shattering old guardrails and drawing both nations closer to direct confrontation. The Iran-Israel story is a cautionary tale, one that demands our urgent attention. Centuries before modern Iran and Israel, a Persian king, Cyrus the Great, freed the Jews from Babylonian exile and funded the rebuilding of their temple. This act forged a unique bond, celebrated in the Hebrew Bible and echoed in centuries of Jewish life in Persia. When Israel declared independence in 1948, Iran, under the Shah, became the second Muslim-majority nation to recognize it. This was less about sentiment and more about shared interests. Both were non-Arab, US-aligned powers in a turbulent region. The partnership saw deep military, intelligence, and economic cooperation. Oil flowed, secrets were shared, and both nations benefited. For a time, the ancient friendship of Cyrus found modern expression. But this alliance, built by governments, would prove fragile in the face of revolution. 1979 was the turning point. The Shah's pro-Western monarchy fell, replaced by Ayatollah Khomeini's Islamic Republic. The new regime saw Israel not as a partner, but as an illegitimate outpost of Western imperialism. Diplomatic ties were severed overnight. The Israeli embassy became the PLO's. Iran's foreign policy shifted from pragmatic alliances to revolutionary ideology, supporting the Palestinians and casting Israel as the little Satan. The conflict became existential, not just political. Iran began sponsoring anti-Israel groups, laying the groundwork for decades of proxy warfare. The era of friendship was over. A new era of relentless hostility had begun. The long war was underway. After 1979, Iran's strategy evolved. Proxies like Hezbollah became its weapon of choice. The IRGC built Hezbollah into a formidable force on Israel's border, arming and funding it throughout the 1990s. This allowed Iran to strike at Israel indirectly, avoiding direct confrontation but keeping up constant pressure. Israel responded with airstrikes and a shadow war led by Mossad, sabotage, assassinations, and intelligence operations targeting Iran's networks and nuclear ambitions. The 1990s saw deadly attacks abroad, including bombings in Buenos Aires and a grinding war of attrition in Lebanon. Each attack and counterattack deepened mistrust and animosity. The conflict was no longer theoretical, it was a deadly, global shadow war. The stage was set for escalation. The 21st century brought a new terror, a nuclear-armed Iran. In 2002, secret Iranian nuclear sites were exposed, confirming Israel's worst fears. Preventing an Iranian bomb became Israel's top priority, shaping its security policy for decades. The 2015 Iran nuclear deal imposed limits, but Israel fiercely opposed it, arguing it was too weak and temporary. The U.S. withdrawal in 2018 and renewed sanctions led Iran to ramp up enrichment, pushing the region closer to crisis. Israel responded with sabotage, cyber attacks like Stuxnet, and targeted assassinations of Iranian scientists. The nuclear question became the most explosive element of the conflict. Diplomacy faltered, the shadow war intensified. The Syrian civil war gave Iran a chance to entrench itself on Israel's doorstep, building a land bridge to Hezbollah and establishing military bases in Syria. Israel launched hundreds of airstrikes to disrupt Iranian operations, waging a relentless war between the wars. Meanwhile, the conflict expanded into cyberspace, both sides targeting critical infrastructure, from ports to power grids. Cyber attacks became a new front, with the potential for chaos and civilian harm. The shadow war also moved to the seas, with mysterious attacks on ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Oman. Each new domain, land, air, sea, and cyberspace, broadened the conflict's reach. By the end of the 2010s, the Iran-Israel struggle was global, high-tech, and deeply unstable. The risk of direct confrontation was growing. The world watched as the stakes rose ever higher. The Hamas attack on Israel in October 2023, backed by Iranian support, ignited a devastating war in Gaza. The conflict quickly spread. Hezbollah opened a second front in the north, and Iranian-backed groups in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria launched attacks on Israel and U.S. interests. The war in Gaza became one of the most destructive of the century, with immense human cost and regional escalation. Israel's military response was fierce, but the multi-front pressure stretched its resources thin. The conflict disrupted global trade and drew in a U.S.-led coalition. As the war dragged on, Israel faced growing diplomatic isolation, with even traditional allies turning away. Iran's strategy of multi-front confrontation was in full effect, emboldening it further. The region was now locked in a cycle of escalation. The risk of direct Iran-Israel war loomed larger than ever. In 2024, the shadow war erupted into open conflict. After an Israeli strike killed senior Iranian commanders, Iran launched its first direct missile and drone attack on Israel. Israel retaliated with strikes inside Iran, breaking a decades-old taboo. The cycle of escalation drew in more of Iran's military, making the conflict even more unpredictable. Diplomatic efforts collapsed. Iran threatened to leave the Non-Proliferation Treaty, raising fears of a nuclear dash. Intelligence warned of another major Iranian attack. On June 13, 2025, Israel launched a preemptive strike on Iran, marking the most significant escalation yet. The region was thrown into turmoil, and hopes for diplomacy evaporated. The shadow war was over. The direct war had begun with consequences no one could predict. From ancient friendship to open war, the Iran-Israel conflict is now one of the world's most dangerous. Each side sees its actions as justified, locked in a cycle of existential fear and retaliation. The nuclear issue remains at the heart of the crisis. Without a solution, the threat of devastating war will persist. The Palestinian question is inseparable. A just resolution could undercut Iran's ideological justification and open new diplomatic paths. But with Gaza in ruins and peace talks stalled, hope feels remote. True peace would require profound change, recognition, security, and perhaps a transformation in one or both societies. For now, the region holds its breath, teetering between escalation and the faint hope of peace. The world's challenge is to help these nations find a new path before it's too late. The future hangs in the balance. If you enjoy this kind of video, please subscribe to the channel for more in-depth explorations.